Elizabeth Colbert, in a recent book, describes how the last 15,000 years of the ice record shows a climate that's been favorable for the development of our complex civilization. It also shows that it's a mistake to assume that this climate will continue. The record indicates that such periods usually do not persist much longer than the one that we're presently in, and changes occur rapidly. The Gulf Stream and other ocean currents serve as gigantic pumps, moving heat from the tropics towards the poles. Near the pole, the water freezes. Concentrated saline water is squeezed out of freezing sea ice, and this heavier water sinks in the ocean, serving as the pump for such currents. Fresh water from melting ice is a threat to these ocean currents, and global warming may, in a 1-2 punch, give us the next ice age. So I think about such things as I sit in my gently rocking canoe in a landscape scoured by ice. I imagine the droughts and storms of a hot planet, and then the cold, the snout of the glacier grinding across the Canadian border. For my cornfield, that is when perpetuity ends. So what should we, as the only animals on Earth capable of postulating future events, do about this? David Inglis, professor of physics at the University of Massachusetts and a patient of mine, published this book in 1978. 30 years ago, he explained to me that if the US expended the same fraction of the gross national product that was spent on farm windmills during the year 1850 to 1940, that the US could install enough wind turbines to meet the electrical demands of the entire country. Since he performed his calculations, much more efficient and economical wind turbines have been built and are generating power today. Here is one of David Inglis's farm windmills, over here. The farmer has now leased his pasture to the owner of the wind turbines you see in the background. He and his wife have moved to town. I imagine he's lost a lot of his suntan, and his overalls are now clean. He and his wife now have a Buick instead of the Chevy. Or maybe I'm wrong, and he has a 10-gallon hat, fancy boots, and it is in Vegas with some chicky poo. Last year, Helen and I visited the Danish island of Samsø. Copenhagen's over here. This island of 4,600 people decided some years ago to bury the electric and phone lines that serviced their homes and businesses. It was less expensive in the long run. Denmark is like that. Perhaps this experience with buried wires led to the decision to use the abundant wind on the island to generate power. Wind turbines were erected throughout the island and connected to the grid covering northern Europe and Scandinavia. On average, these turbines generated enough power to service the island's entire electrical need. Excess power was exported and sold via the grid, and imported power was used when the wind power was insufficient. At the same time, district heating plants were constructed to heat homes in the villages, burning straw and wood chips and collecting what sun was available in their northern latitude. Metered hot water is piped to the homes for home heating and domestic hot water use. As carbon neutrality was approached by these means, the people decided that they should offset the use of petroleum for cars, tractors, and ferry boats servicing the islands so they could claim to be completely carbon neutral. To do this, they erected 10 large offshore wind turbines financed by grants and loans given to local municipalities and by people holding fractional shares in the turbines. Owners of these machines can go to the web and learn how their turbine is performing at the moment and learn how much income their turbine has generated for them in the last month. I believe that the success story on SAMSO derives from the spirit of cooperation that prevailed, pride in the local ownership of the project, and recognition of what they were doing to forestall the problems that they saw coming. And in this level of cooperation that we see in SAMSO, I see the same nidus of cooperation that has occurred in this group as it's faced its problems and has agreed to cooperate and form the alliance. It's heartwarming. Our country has a wonderful supply of available wind power sites from Texas to North Dakota that are environmentally robust. You doubt this? Take a blue highway anywhere along this track and get out of the car. If you're wearing a hat, hang on to it. What is lacking is the electrical distribution grid capable of taking full advantage of this opportunity. The cost of photovoltaic power generation is dropping rapidly. Even in New England, generating solar power makes sense. The cost per kilowatt hour is currently less than that of oil and nuclear. If you factor in the cost of clean coal, including scrubbing the sulfur and mercury, coal no longer looks cheap. What do you think of the economics of coal will look like when our electricity rates include CO2 capture? Nor is the true cost of mine and coal production site reclamation reflected in the cost of coal. Photovoltaic power that is installed on rooftops in urban areas has little impact on the distribution system and grid. For larger loads, however, solar power generation will be located in areas with lots of sun. We stopped last spring at this site in Crestone, Colorado. It was working silently, doing its job. We'll do so with little or no maintenance for the next 25 years, while the installers have moved on to other such sites with good pay. So is it feasible for the USA to replace fossil fuels with green energy, decrease greenhouse gas emissions, and not go broke in the process? The short answer is yes, unless you fall for the misinformation being provided by the fossil fuel lobby. Using current photovoltaic technology to generate all of the electricity and all of the other energy used in the US would require covering 5.5 million acres at the latitude of Texas with panels. A single site of that size would be 93 miles on each side. Since 1982, the US government has leased or offered for lease 229 million acres for oil drilling and exploration. That's our land that's being offered. That is 40 times the amount of land that would be required to generate from solar sources all of the energy that we use in this country. Photovoltaic and wind power costs are falling rapidly, while the costs of fossil and nuclear fuel is rising. Solar power is presently being installed at a cost of less than $4 per watt in Germany. Panels are being manufactured in the US for less than $1 a watt. The construction cost of the third generation state-of-the-art nuclear-powered plant in Finland, built by the French nuclear company Areva, is more than $10 a watt. This figure does not include the cost of nuclear fuel, financing, or operation of that plant. As a physician, taxpayer, and conservationist, it is heartwarming to see green power come of age. As an educator, it's fun to talk about what is feasible and what is healthy for all of us. Wealth and optimism are still possible for this country if we make some of the right choices. We need to feel our spirits rise as we get those wagons on the trail again. Adventure is good for all of us, and there is no better adventure than science. Thank you.